A Power 4 athletic director says Oregon State and Washington State belong at the Power 4. He's right, even if he is a little biased.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth: realignment, coaching carousel, the portal, and more. We've always got you covered. This episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We'll talk about Mack Brown. He kind of came out guns blazing at ACC Media Days last week. Speaking of the ACC, Clemson has to beat Louisville. Yep, I'll tell you why later on today's show. But we start with Oregon State and Washington State, who are getting some kind words and praiseworthy comments from Pat Chun. Now, if you have left this ecosystem of realignment for a minute, allow me to bring you up to speed. Pat Chun is not, I repeat, not the athletic director at Washington State. He's the boy. Oh, this is so strange. He's the athletic director at Washington now. That's the way this goes. When you have a chance to go to the Power 4, you do so. But he was interviewed by John Canzano recently and said that he felt that when you look at the television numbers that Oregon State and Washington State put forward and the universities that both of them are and how they operate and what their athletics look like, they deserve to be in the Power 4 ranks. Now, the two points on that particular mark. First of all, does Pat Chun understand what Washington State specifically is about, but Oregon State as well? He's worked with them many times over the last couple of years in this new look Pac-12 with just two teams in the realignment landscape and such. Does he understand what those places are about and why they do deserve to be at the Power 4? Yes. Is he also probably just trying to win back a little bit of favor here with Washington State fans? I can't say it's the furthest thing from my mind as I read these comments and hear these sorts of remarks. Like, well, I mean, yeah, you say that, but then do you really believe it's possible? Because if he felt it was possible or imminent, would he be the athletic director at Washington right now? No, probably not. You don't go to your school's in-state rival if you think, well, we're going to be in the same level of them really, really soon. The Pac-12 rebuild is coming. It's on the way. It's just a matter of when, not if, they make announcements and moves and work out finances and deals and exit fees and all those fun, wonderful details that we've talked about many a times here on the show. But for Oregon State and Washington State, how do they actually get into the Power 4? Because it's clearly not going to be in this round, or as I said, Pat Chun might have stuck around and said, no, I like this place. I like my job here, and we're going to be at that level. It's not imminent. You're looking late 2020s, early 2030s for when Oregon State and Washington State can position themselves to be readmitted to the caliber of athletics they never should have been relegated from to begin with. So how do they accomplish that? Well, what Chun talked about in his comments that I found interesting was he mentioned the playoff revenue being important, but he also mentioned that the television ratings are important. And if you've been following this stuff for a while, as I have, and many of you have as well, and if you've been doing it on this show, I appreciate you for doing that. What stands out in that remark is, okay, so you have to maximize viewership. You have to be on people's minds all the time. What's the number one way for a group of 5 team in 2024 and beyond, Buzz Lightyear, to be at the front of mind or many minds for college football fans, media, decision makers, conference commissioners? How do you do that? It's the playoff. It's the playoff. So it comes down to the playoff. So this is the pivotal crux in Oregon State and Washington State's plans to rebuild the league and make it into something worthwhile, the playoff has to be central to their vision. Winning the conference that is a rebuilt Pac-12 has to give you a really, really strong chance to get into the playoff. Because you know what raises your viewership in the regular season? When you have postseason success. What's one of the most well-viewed Group of 5 football teams in the country and has been for a long time? Boise State. Boise State. It's not the only one, but it is one of them. They have a slightly higher share in the current Mountain West media rights contract. Why? Because more people watch them. Why do more people watch them? Yeah, they have a great fan base, but do they have a big television market? No. No, they don't have a big television market at all, but their brand is substantially bigger than what their television market reflects their viewership should be. So when you look at what Boise State brings to the table, it's postseason pedigree. My personal first experience of Boise State football on television was the 2007 Fiesta Bowl. I had watched some games, throughout the season. I kind of knew they do a bunch of trick plays and such. And then they just did it against Bob Stoops in Oklahoma in the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, which, to be renamed the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. I have nothing against PlayStation. They make excellent consoles. To miss the marketing opportunity, the home run. In baseball, you can't hit a 5-run homer. But in the marketing sense, Tostitos Fiesta Bowl is a 5-run homer. I can't believe they let that go by the wayside. It's always bothered me. But that's when Boise State made their entrance. And then all of a sudden, they're playing big-time college football games. They're playing Georgia in preseason matchups. They're playing Oregon in preseason matchups. And they were winning those games once upon a time. And that was a different era of college football. Now everyone's going to pay attention to the playoff. So if you're a Group of 5 team and Oregon State and Washington State are operating somewhere in between the Group of 5 and independent ranks compared to a team like Notre Dame, if you want to be a valuable commodity, if you want to grow the interest, the viewership, and the actual raw numbers that you are able to generate when your football team plays on TV, you have to be able to get into the playoff. The access has to be there. And I think that's important for the rebuild as well, because as you look at what they're going to try to do, luring Mountain West teams away is not an automatic proposition. I think it's feasible, even with the exit fees. It's absolutely doable. Every indication is that that's the direction they are going to go forward with. Will it be a full reverse merger? I don't think that's in their best interests. Because you're trying to build the best league you can. But if you have an 8-team league and it's just Oregon State, Washington State, and the 6 best teams that you pull from the Mountain West, what's your playoff access look like? And I think that the data we get from this year's college football season is going to help clarify what this conference will have to look like, what the structure of it will have to look like one day. Because ultimately, that's got to be the number one goal. That has to be the number one priority. Have to be able to get into the playoff. You have to be able to make noise, play interesting games, play exciting games, host a playoff game on campus at some point if that ever becomes a possibility. I mean, that would be just a beautiful spectacle for either of those schools or both of them in the coming years. You do that several times over the next 8 seasons of college football, you increase your chances. That is how you get back into the Power 4. It's a long road, but it starts with rebuilding the league, and those moves, they're going to be announced, I would think, sometime after this upcoming college football season. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. I tell you to do that in somewhat rhetorical fashion because you all do it anyway, but I appreciate that you do. Mack Brown had some comments at ACC Media Days last week. He is coming out firing. I'm fading his team anyway. That's coming up next. First, we're going with Ibotta. You know why? Because sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids, what do these things have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta, get cash back on all your purchases when you stock up on your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop, which is really neat. It's very simple as well. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you are purchasing. It's time you join the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time that they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners just $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. All one word, no spaces. This episode also brought to you by Factor. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. No matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Go check out Factor today. So Mack Brown has still got that fire. He has still got that itch. He's still got the juice. I don't like his football team very much this year anyway, particularly and especially at the quarterback position. This is a North Carolina program that has done a really, really good job. Reminds me a bit of UCLA coach Chip Kelly teams. He's not the head coach at UCLA anymore, if you didn't know. Deshaun Foster's there, and Deshaun Foster had a press conference last week. I'll just kind of leave it at that. But the teams start really hot, and then they fade. And the last 2 quarterbacks that Mack Brown has had where they start really hot and then they fade down the stretch have been Drake May, future franchise quarterback of the New England Patriots, and Sam Howell, who started for a little while in the NFL and is now a backup quarterback for my Seattle Seahawks. And Mack Brown, the recruiting has not been trending in the best of ways over the last couple of years. It's not a disaster. It's not great. It's going in the wrong direction. They're going to have Max Johnson, a quarterback this year. Yeah, I'm not the highest on Max Johnson's abilities, especially compared to Drake May. Well, I got news for you. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Mack Brown is 72 years old. I give him credit for not just still being in the coaching profession and winning football games. I mean, it's not as if Mack Brown is running a disastrous program over there. North Carolina, to me, just feels stuck in neutral. If you've got that sort of quarterback and you'd been there for as long, if it was your second year, that's one thing. But Mack Brown has been at North Carolina for enough time to where every year should have high expectations. And whether or not he gets put on the hot seat after this season will depend on 2 things. How it goes, obviously. And number 2, what the administration's commitment to building a championship level football program is. There is no reason, with the level of financial and fan support and location as well, North Carolina can't be a team that ascends to the top of the ACC, especially in a couple of years once Florida State and Clemson, in all likelihood, get out of the conference. They can be there. But you got to make the coaching hires that showcase recruits that you're all in. And you have to make the sort of coaching hires that can run a program at the highest level. I haven't seen the evidence that Mack Brown can bring North Carolina up into they're not going to bottom out as long as he's there, but he's certainly not taking them to a championship level. I don't see that. There is no evidence here. So Mack Brown is firing at the hip anyway. And I got to give him props for still, going out there. And every now and then I am okay. There are lines that coaches shouldn't cross and you got to take the high ground and you just have to accept it. But every now and then coaches can say they don't hear the noise. They hear it. Maybe Mack Brown has listened to or seen this very program before. I don't know. That's possible. I can see the number of people that listen to or watch my show. I can't see who those people are unless you, of course, comment on one of my videos or shoot me a note on Twitter. But if Mack Brown truly didn't hear all the noise, would he say the following quote, as he did this past week at ACC Media Days? Quote, "Every coach recruiting against us says I'm going to quit, and 6 of them have been fired that said that already. So they ought to be worried about themselves." Let me applaud Mack Brown, because as far as coaching quotes go in the offseason, that is an A+. Maybe an A. Why don't we save A+ for Lane Kiffin just body bagging Paul Feinbaum on national television? That might be where we keep the A+. But that is a really, really great A comment right there from a head coach. Is he overcompensating? Is he overprojecting that he's not going anywhere, that he isn't going to leave? I don't know. I don't know. Here's what I do know about Mack Brown. I am fading his football team this year. They open in week 1. Week 1. Do you know who they play? Do you know who they play? They play Minnesota week 1. Oh, that game's in Minneapolis, by the way. Minnesota is a slight favorite. Now, I saw PJ Fleck live for the first time last week at Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis, and he is an energetic guy. Let's make that the understatement of the year as far as press conference reactions go. He was getting fired up. He was not lacking in juice, let's just say. But after the Minnesota game, North Carolina will have 3 games that they should win. Just watch out. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm recording the show July 28th, 2024. It's airing July 29th. Watch out for that September 21st game in Chapel Hill, James Madison, North Carolina. Once prediction season rolls around on the show, and it's right around the corner, in less than a month, there will be a Power 5 college football game that is played, a conference game, as a matter of fact, between Florida State and Georgia Tech. And is it the last time they ever play as conference opponents? As John Mulaney once said in a famous bit, who's to say? So just watch for that James Madison game on September 21st. But Charlotte, North Carolina Central, James Madison, yeah, you should win all those games. Then you go at Duke, host Pittsburgh, host Georgia Tech, at Virginia, at Florida State, host Wake Forest, at Boston College, host NC State. Look, it's not a brutal schedule. I think North Carolina is going to lose a couple games that they don't. I just don't like the trajectory of the program. I don't like the quarterback position. And Mack Brown can say whatever he likes in a press conference. It doesn't make me suddenly believe. It makes me smile. It doesn't make me suddenly believe he's capable of being something that he's not. Now, they've struggled on the back half of seasons over the last couple of years, and they have a relatively weaker final 6 games. Georgia Tech at home, at Virginia, at Florida State. That's the toughest game. They'll lose that one. Okay, whatever. Wake Forest at home. They're not expected to be great this year. Maybe they surprise somebody. At Boston College, first-year head coach. Then host NC State. I am taking the Wolfpack in that game every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I think you're going to see betting lines on North Carolina move throughout the course of the year compared to where they are right now. Because I think Minnesota, week 1 in Minneapolis, that game is on Thursday, August 29th. That's literally 1 month away. The line on that game, according to our friends at FanDuel, Minnesota minus 2.5. Yeah. Look, this is not some personal vendetta I have against North Carolina. There are just teams, off seasons, moves, coaches who I just don't have a lot of faith in. If we come up with a best bet segment here on the show, which we may very well do, I had decent, average, okay, moderate success a year ago picking games in a conference that I was talking about earlier on the show and now only has 2 teams in it. That would be one of my best bets for week 1. Minnesota minus 2.5 at home against North Carolina. I think that is a hammer. Hammer the Gophers, who also, by the way, have some of the most underrated uniforms in all of college football. I don't like, PJ Fleck's got a little bit of pressure on him going into this year. I love Minnesota in that spot. At home, week 1, everybody's 0-0. Crowd's going to come out with their hair on fire, and the players and the teams and the coaches and the fans all are going to have the belief that it can be a great season and it can be special because you haven't seen anything else yet. And that's what we live for in college football. So, yeah, I like Minnesota in that particular spot. So I respect Mack Brown taking a little bit of a shot. He's earned that. He's earned that. He's still there. Other coaches are not. I don't know how much longer he's going to be the head coach at North Carolina. Won't be surprised if this season goes 6-6, 7-5, if they make a change. I would. If he doesn't, deliver an 8-9 win season this year, if it doesn't look great, I'd consider it. I would consider it. Anyway, that's my Mack Brown rant. I've got a Dabo Swinney rant coming up next. And the one game, they need to win several. Clemson has to beat Louisville. You have to beat Louisville. I'll tell you why coming up next. After I tell you about FanDuel, I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and sports aren't sportsing like we want them to, but FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All we have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that we're in the mood. I can do it, you can do it, your friends can do it, anybody can do it, and everything you want for college football, it's all available. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. They've got over-under win totals, individual games, Minnesota over North Carolina, and just a bunch of great stuff. It's just fun to look at. So if you haven't done that before, I highly recommend it. It is a really fascinating thing to dive into. Numbers are chef's kiss. They are glorious. Head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer and get ready for the college football season. They've got Heisman odds too. Bet whoever you like. FanDuel.com. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Clemson is going to lose their first game of the season. I hope I'm not breaking news to you, Tiger fans. You're not going to walk into Atlanta and beat the preseason national title favorites. That be Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, who I haven't made my national championship pick yet. I'm struggling to get off of Georgia. I really am. So Clemson's going to start the year 0-1. Then they play Appalachian State at home. Better not lose that game, Dabo. Then they play NC State. That's a game they could absolutely lose. They're at home, though. Death Valley. Probably lean towards the Tigers. I love what Dave Doran has done this offseason. Grayson McCall, they've got a nice array of weapons. Kenton Gibbs, a locked-on Wolfpack, thinks it's one of the best they have had in several years over there. And I tend to agree with him. They got to put it together on the field. But, man, Dave Doran, high-floor program. Can he get through that next ceiling? We'll see if Grayson McCall is the guy to do it. He's got a veteran quarterback coming from the Group of 5 ranks. I have seen crazier things happen in the world of college football. But Clemson at home. Now, this is a program that is under pressure, but not hot seat pressure. Right? Dabo's got a lot of equity with the fan base. You know why? Because he's won a lot. Win equity is a term you hear a lot. Dabo Swinney has a lot of that because he won 2 national championships in a 3-year span. Sorry, just clearing my throat there. So he has a lot of support. But there could be not a move over to the hot seat, maybe not even a warming of the seat. But someone could turn on the seat warmer in Dabo Swinney's car if this season doesn't go well. And yeah, the transfer portal is the reason why. Clemson and Colorado are at polar opposite ends of the spectrum. Heck, Clemson and Florida State are at polar ends of that spectrum. Oh, by the way, Clemson plays Florida State on October 5th. Now, Louisville's the game they have to win. Now, why do they have to beat the Louisville Cardinals? Because that line is currently set at Clemson minus 8.5. Meaning Vegas thinks, yeah, you should win that football game. But it's at home. It's in early November. It is one of 2 quality dark horse ACC title contenders that they play at home, NC State being the other one that I mentioned a moment ago. But that game on November 2nd is followed by a trip to, look at that, Blacksburg, Virginia. Speaking of dark horse ACC title contenders, let me introduce you to the Virginia Tech Hokies. Fascinating team. A lot of teams have major questions. Some teams have smaller questions. I think the biggest one for Virginia Tech is, What do you get out of Kyron Drones in the passing game? Because if you get something good, doesn't have to be great, doesn't have to be elite, doesn't have the best thing you've ever seen, doesn't even have to be what Kyron Drones is ultimately capable of and can one day be as a Virginia Tech quarterback. But do you just get a little bit more efficiency? Do you get a little bit more consistency there? Because if you do, Virginia Tech becomes a very interesting team. So Clemson has to play all three of those dark horse ACC title contenders, and you have two of them at home. You got to win those football games. And Louisville has a good football team. That's a good coach. That's a capable quarterback who, when healthy, historically, Tyler Shuck is the name I'm referring to here, has won football games. So that Louisville game sets the stage to go on the road against Virginia Tech the following week. So if you follow what I am predicting here loosely, not officially, for Clemson's schedule at this point in time, their path to going 10-2, being in the playoff conversation, getting into the college football playoff, relies very heavily on winning that Louisville game. You can make the same argument for NC State. I'm not going to push back on you there. I think Clemson will have that little bit of extra juice. After losing to Georgia, I think it could be kind of a butt kicking, frankly, week 1 in Atlanta. And so when they get back to Death Valley, they're going to play with their hair on fire. But then they'll be settling into the season. They'll have a Virginia. They'll have a Wake Forest. And then it's Louisville. Where's Louisville going to be at that point in the season? Top 25? Could be. That's not out of the realm of possibility. I bet you Louisville fans would say, yeah, we should be top 25. Early November? Yeah, should be in that sort of range. But for Clemson to make the ACC championship game, having the head-to-head with Louisville is critically important. That's number one. Number two, if they beat Louisville in that game, and again, if you want to apply this to NC State, that's totally fine. I'm focusing on Louisville here. I don't see Clemson losing more than one other ACC game aside from Florida State. Clemson could be 9-3 and make the playoff. Spencer, you're being crazy. No, really not. Because making the conference championship game generally requires 2 or fewer league losses. So the Georgia game doesn't matter for their ACC title hopes. The Louisville game, of course, does. And if you have the head-to-head, you're probably getting in over the Cardinal there. And if you have the head-to-head over NC State, well, that's another one that you can knock off. There's no Miami on this schedule. They play Florida State in a marquee game on October 5th. Oh, boy. That's going to be a heck of a football game. That game is down in Tallahassee, though. So, do I expect Clemson to win? No. I expect them to lose that football game. Which then brings me to my next point. If you beat those teams at home, it's suddenly a lot more tenable to get to the ACC championship game. So that's why I think Louisville is such an important game. It's not the worst ACC schedule on here because you are Clemson, so of course you don't have to play Clemson. You don't have to play Miami, who everyone expects to be good, myself included. But to just have all the dark horses in there, oof, no North Carolina on this schedule. And if you were listening to the show earlier or watching, you know how I feel about North Carolina. I am not particularly high on the Tar Heels. Their mascot went on my name for like just a moment. I mean, like just a fleeting moment. But you have some winnable games. You have some tougher games. The home road splits, not terrible. I'd almost rather have Florida State on the road and get both NC State and Louisville at home rather than trying to travel to either one of those teams' stadiums. But you have to go at Virginia Tech. That's a pivotal game. These games, by the way, are startlingly close to being played. We're going to have actual games to cover in less than a month. Do you realize that? Do you realize how exciting, wonderful, and joyful that is? I love the off-season. I love summer. Off-season content is fun. Media days the last couple weeks were a blast and a thrill, and I met a bunch of great people and had a good time, and just great experiences all around. And I love summer because I'm playing golf. Probably as you're listening to or watching the show, there's a high probability that is legitimately the case, and I play plenty of golf and do summer activities and go to fun places. It's all wonderful. But then it comes to a close. And what's the one thing to keep you going when summer comes to a close? It's the football season. It is the football season, college football specifically. I'm a big NFL fan. I watch plenty of the NFL. It's not college football. There is nothing like college football. As I say every day to begin this show, this is the greatest sport on planet Earth. There is nothing better. There is nothing like it. And it inches ever closer. So many big games. If there's a big game breakdown that you want from me here on the show, just let me know. YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter, at @SMcLaughlinCFB, always available. DMs and mentions wide open. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.